Welcome to another rare edition. Brev, the season's over, but I'll skull clap
Yeah,
your
the free
haircut.
agency is good.
Well, that and your haircut looks really good.
Yeah, still, I
You
got it cut like Sunday, I think.
between that and the vest over what looks like a quarter zip underneath, I
Yeah,
think you look like the head of an HOA, and I'm digging it.
thank you. Uh, I thought about wearing a golf cap, but I don't play golf. I thought that would have really completed the look.
Would have, as the kids say, that would have literally been golf cap. Anyways, that was terrible. We're back with a rare. Brev and I have both been busy. Life is a little busy and chaotic. But we're back with a rare episode of the Skolcial Network post the playoffs and regular season. But last time we talked about desired free agents. Brev, we're going to talk about what ended up happening. I think it's safe to say uh, better than expected.
Yeah, I think if you look at the names that Minnesota signed, they're names that you would have picked like one out of for Minnesota to get, and I like maybe two if you're being super optimistic. So to come out with, I guess the big four of this free agency period, maybe soon to be big five. Um, you got to be happy. I mean, you look at what Kwesi did last offseason, and again, Kwesi getting respect from me. Again, we got to see how his drafts turn out, but free agency, I've liked everything I've seen. So you look at the edge rushing unit last year, uh, because if you took Daniil away from it going away in free agency, like there was literally nothing. Signs a couple free agents, drafts Dallas Turner, who didn't have a huge hand in it. Now suddenly you've got like maybe the best pass rushing duo in the NFL. And that kind of looks like the same mindset as what he did with the interior of the O and D lines.
Yeah, it that was that Wednesday or Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday morning because negotiations started Monday. And I think the first move was Jones resigning last weekend. Um, and then a relatively quiet first day. I think the first move was Isaiah Rogers, which not the sexiest move, but I think a really good one. I think the panic in the moment. I know you're, you know, maybe like some NFL player out there kind of hiding in a cave when it comes to the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, People were a little panicked because at that time, DJ Reed was announced to sign with the Lions. We had been told a couple days earlier that Byron Murphy was going to hit the market. So I think people were panicked about him being cornerback one. But once we got the Byron Murphy news, the Isaiah Rogers news looked a lot better as a second corner, a nickel corner, whatever you want to call him. Um, I think he'll be really good.
Yeah, I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be in line with what Stephon Gilmore provided, if you want to call it Stephon Gilmore the corner two. That maybe
I
not
think
as good.
better. I think
Yeah, he could
better
be better for
at
sure.
this as at his age.
Yeah. I guess really that was my least favorite, not the Isaiah, like the Isaiah Rogers. I was just kind of like, oh, okay, cool. The Aaron Jones re-sign, not because we re-signed Aaron Jones, but like the money, you see the face value of the contract, and you're like, oh. I wasn't really ever a huge fan of bringing Jones back unless it was like a 1 year meh. Here's 5 million bucks, but it's not something I'm gonna over analyze. I try to be better about that nowadays. I forgot how to talk on camera. But yeah, the Aaron Jones getting re-signed and being my least favorite really transaction at all, including trades, re-signings, everything. Um, I think that speaks volumes because if my least favorite transaction of the period being re-signing a pretty good running back, then things must be going well.
I think wasn't his cap hit this year? His effective cap hit only like 5 million though.
Yeah, I know they worked around the money, so that's why I'm not freaking out
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, and then going in, I'm trying to remember, did we sign anybody else on Monday? I think, oh, Ryan Kelly was a Monday signing. That one, I remember when you and I were doing our free agent predictions, we had talked about him, I think, and Dahlman. I think out of the two, we'd lean towards Dahlman, but both said we didn't see center being the area addressed. So that came as a pretty massive surprise to a lot of people on Twitter, at least. Uh, Obviously, and the caveat with a lot of these is a lot of them are past their best days. A lot of them have had injury struggles, but these are all players who have had a lot of success at different points in their career. And even at their older age, so to speak, now, I think, in fairness, all are upgrades over who they're replacing.
Yeah, the offensive line was a weird one because it was completely understandable for Minnesota to go scorched earth and give out, well, really, they only gave out one really big contract to Will Fries, and then the Ryan Kelly thing, like that's a bargain of a contract to get for Ryan Kelly, even at his older age. The offensive line was in a weird spot going into the free agency period, whereas like you understand why they would run it back with what they have and maybe just sign like a guard, or and it was also understandable that they do what they did and went full blown. Let's take a look at what maybe like the Eagles did. Let's just get huge up front. Let's just get large. Because I mean, other than JJ McCarthy, like you're gonna have to protect him. We'll talk more on that later. Um, that's huge for a running back like Aaron Jones. Because even again at his age now, even when he gets a little bit of space, it's still he's still hitting it and he's still doing that kind of like that joystick type of movement. I don't know what to say about that, but um, getting better run blocking up
Still
front. The run game
shifty.
shifty. There you go.
That's probably weird.
I've been playing a lot of Ultimate Team. I was trying not to say the ability that you put on run. It's like human joystick or something. Um, so yeah, it's huge. It's the way I kind of worded it in my head earlier was on paper, theoretically, not just looking out the offensive line. Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah just attempted in a period of like 48 hours to rid of decades worth of issues at the interior offensive line, and you can throw the interior defensive line in there too. So on paper, this should be the best offensive line across the board in at least 15, 16 years.
And we might not be done
Yeah.
because that left guard position, like you might address with your first pick, wherever that is. I know Zabel is it out of North Dakota State. He's a
Mm-hmm.
tackle, but everyone he worked out as he did some work at I think it was right guard during the Senior Bowl, or did he bounce kind of between all the interior spots? You're not as terminally online anymore, so you don't quite. I know you probably keep up, but maybe not that much. But
I will know eventually, but right
yeah,
now,
but I know he did some work at guard and looked really good, so I wouldn't mind him. Um, why am I blanking? What's JJ McCarthy's teammate's name? Booker.
mm,
A lot of people like him coming in. Some people don't think his feet are fast enough for the NFL level. Still will probably be a first or second round pick. But if you keep Brandel there in the left guard spot, he had moments this year, and by moments I mean when Darisaw was playing, where he was completely fine. You bring Darisaw back, assume he's 100%, and then you put a much better, bigger center next to him. I'm not panicked about Brandel. He's the
no.
point of what is going to be a pretty damn solid offensive line, but they're even the best offensive lines in the league very rarely are perfect.
Yeah, well, that speaks to the point of I would have understood if the Vikings just ran it back and maybe replaced a guard going into the season because, and Tyler Fornes mentioned it. Once Darisaw went down, that's when the offensive line was just like dominoes of just the quality of play. They were still fine, but they weren't anywhere near what they were when Christian Darisaw. Like everything starts at the left tackle if your quarterback is left-handed, right tackle if your quarterback's left-handed. But yeah, so I think that's where I think they'll just keep Brandel there, and I think Brandel will be fine right next to Christian Darrisaw.
I'll add this. It's skipping ahead a bit, but then we'll talk defensive line and then we'll talk about the other stuff happening this week. Fast forward a few days, we trade Ed Ingram for a 2026 sixth to the Texans. Um, you missed out on all the Texans fans posting all 22 of him saying, "Oh my God, he can handle a stunt," or oh my God, look at him playing against us. He opened up these lanes. And it made me realize that Ed Ingram had a couple decent plays. And to
Yeah.
begin the season, I think he definitely benefited from what you were talking about because there were moments on Twitter people were like, "Oh, Ingram's not doing bad," and there were people who were actually kind of against him getting replaced with Dalton. Um, but then we started posting the strip sack on Kirk Cousins. That was him strip sacking him, and then the video of him stepping on his foot twice. Uh, and they took a different turn in how they were responding to this acquisition.
Yeah, Ed Ingram wasn't. I mean, his low moments were low, and in his defense, most of them were in his rookie year. Um, I Ed Ingram really wasn't as bad, kind of as we made it out to be. Just when you have a solid enough offensive line, like Darisaw is good, O'Neal is really good, and the Vikings fan base loves O'Neal. And then Garrett Bradbury is kind of like he's fine. Ed Ingram is gonna be the guy that everybody looks at because he made those two like awful plays in his rookie year, which I'm not saying he only had two awful plays, but when they're in like that big of like a mess up, the spotlight's going to be on that. And Ed Ingram's going to be, I guess, not to be ironic, but everybody blames the quarterback. Ed Ingram had those mess ups. Everybody's going to kind of pile on him. Ingram wasn't as bad as we made him out to be. I think getting a sixth round pick for him is still a win, even though it's not much, but it just shows the aggressiveness after years and years and years of like, oh, this offensive lineman was good enough most of the time. Now
God,
you're giving an $88 million contract out to replace him and also the guy who replaced him. So,
I still have a video of me watching the Chargers game, I believe in 2021, when they went to SoFi. I believe it was, yeah, that's the year Zimmer got fired. And I'm just screaming Oli Udo's name over and over again because he had like five false starts that game.
mhm. Isn't
So,
that Ingram a predator too?
what?
Isn't that Ingram a predator?
Uh, Allegedly for legal reasons. We've
All
already
right.
been demonetized, so I guess go with whatever you want to say.
No, that's just what the internet said. I didn't say I think that, but
There were,
apparently.
I mean, from a factual standpoint, there were claims made, and I believe, I could be wrong, that there were charges filed, but possibly dropped.
Mhm.
But that's another thing that is no longer part of our team. And then Bradbury, there is a team interested in trading for him, was the report yesterday. Forgot exactly from who, but because there was only one team interested, they figured they'll just get him when we cut him. But I think in totality, that should add about 5 or 6 million between the two of them to the cap, if I'm not mistaken. It's been so hard to
Mhm.
keep up with all these cap numbers this week.
I don't have much to say about Garrett Bradbury. Thanks for your service or something.
Yeah,
The best thing that Garrett Bradbury provided us is Kirk Cousins talking about how sweaty he is.
Yeah, I did tweet yesterday, and a few people understood it, and a few people, once they caught on, they thought it was funny. John Randall was there when all the free agents came in, and he took a picture next to Ryan Kelly, and Ryan Kelly's bigger than him. And I tweeted, "Wow, our center's actually bigger than John Randall." And some people were like, John Randall was small, right?" And I was like, "Follow the breadcrumbs here."
Hmm.
And then somebody, the funniest part of it was somebody had asked for a picture of John Randall with Garrett Bradbury, and somebody replied with an "I got you, fam," and it's just John Randall in his kitchen with a Photoshop Garrett Bradbury this big, which chef's kiss. I'm
Props to
That's the
that guy.
stuff you probably miss on Twitter is those types of things. Um, we'll talk about probably what you're not missing much on Twitter here momentarily. But let's talk about the defensive line. So both additions, guys who weren't your traditional free agents, neither of them, if I'm not mistaken, count against the comp pick formula, which is because they were both releases, not true free agents.
Mhm.
So Jonathan Allen obviously be oh, wait, we're going to the defensive line. Also that morning for consistency, Will Fry is going to be a massive upgrade.
Yeah.
He was the one everybody wanted on Twitter. Um, Half the fan base probably learned about him a week ago and then decided just to post French fries, which understandable. Keeping up with every player's hard, but
That's
going to
kind
be
of
a
what they did
massive
with JJ
upgrade.
McCarthy too, but I was the bad guy for pointing that out.
I don't know what you're talking about.
We'll talk.
Anyways, um, but Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave, that is Kwesi's, and again, guys on the older end of their career, but you have both of them, and then you can pair them next to Harrison Phillips, rotate them in, or do a NASCAR package where you take them off the field, put an additional, outside linebacker in, whatever you do, drop Metellus, drop Smith, get those guys some breath, whatever it is, just completely change the speed of the game. Like that decision to bring them both in may be to this point, depending on how it works out, Kwesi's best move as a GM.
I could see it, yeah. Um, didn't we, wasn't there toward the end of the Spielman regime, didn't we sign two defensive tackles in the same offseason? Was it Sheldon Richardson and Michael Pierce?
I believe so.
Hopefully it works out better than that. Like hopefully one of
Yeah.
them actually plays, unlike Michael
Michael
Pierce.
Pierce actually retired.
Yeah.
I don't
He
know if you
retired
saw
a
that.
couple of years ago too.
Ooh, 5 years ago, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, what do you think of like which Jonathan, like the Hargrave one kind of came out of nowhere, but out of the two, which one do you think is going to be more of an impact player in 2025?
I'm not gonna cop out and say I think they'll be equally as impactful because now it seems like the rotation's kind of stacked, but it's hard not to say. Um, I guess at face value, Jonathan Allen, just because he has the first round pick pedigree, he's the bigger name technically. But Javon Hargrave has been one of the more underrated defensive tackles in the NFL in recent years. So I'll just go the easy route and say Jonathan Allen.
Yeah, I think that Hargrave is a sleeper, and if I'm not mistaken, Hargrave's a little younger than Allen, or am I
A
mixing
little.
it up?
Oh no, Javon Hargrave is 30 something, I think. Jonathan Allen's probably late 20s.
Give me 2 seconds. We're gonna Google this.
I'll stall. There once was a man who went to
Hargrave's
Stanford.
32. What are you singing?
The Duck Gunny Grapes.
And Jonathan Allen's 30. Okay, they're both
Oh,
30. I just mixed them up. So yeah, I think Hargrave is probably where I lean. But when Allen got healthy last year, like he did really well in those playoff games for them. And so just to be contrarian, I'll say Hargrave because I think he has been slept on, and I think that him getting the help on the defense is going to help him elevate even more. I think Jonathan Allen, I'm expecting big things, but I think Hargrave might be like what we look back on as like the oh my god,
hmm.
that came out of nowhere, and he ended up maybe he doesn't make quite the impact Allen does, but compared to like what else we were going to do, maybe sign some other rando or draft a rookie in that spot, everybody's going to be super hyped about him.
Yeah, and let's be clear about the old cliche that like really, really, really good players don't hit the free agency market. First
Steve
of all, just
Hutchinson.
yeah, first of all, just blatantly false. Second of all, Jonathan Allen wasn't like a free agent. I know he said he got released, but he was the victim of too many cooks in the kitchen. Deron Payne is on that team, and he was coming up on a payday, and he was 30. So not your traditional free agent signing.
This is just so crazy just to think. Like when you put it in perspective, right? The Vikings won 14 games last year in a year where no one expected us to do anything. I think our most optimistic, our nuclear best case scenario before the season, what was it? You were at 11, I was at 12 games. Like,
Mhm.
if everything goes perfect, this is the best we could possibly do. They won 14. They lost to a total of two teams, and those two teams dominated them in the trenches. And they said, we're going to get our entire roster better. We'll have some questions at quarterback we'll talk about, but specifically to address those areas. And while we're at it, we'll throw in a good corner. We'll bring back Byron Murphy. We'll have Makai Blackman or coming back and being healthy as well. I almost said Makai Becton, and I was like, wait, that's a different guy. I would have liked him as well, but he went to the
Yeah.
Chargers. But you have Blackman coming back. You're probably going to draft a running. I mean, I almost guarantee they'll draft a running back at some point. Just a
Yeah.
matter of like BPA where they find the value. But you're arguably going to have a better, more rounded, screw it, a much better team in a lot of areas, like significantly better after you won 14 games. Like that is, I don't know if we've ever seen anything like that in NFL history.
Hard to say with this team. I wouldn't be shocked, but it seems like they're always doing stuff that you've never seen before.
I believe I did see it was the most money, and obviously the cap goes up, but most money compared to available cap space a winning team has ever spent. Um, they led and especially for a team winning over like 10, 11 games, they absolutely blew everybody else out of the water. The way these contracts are set up seems to kind of lean into what the other contracts and timetables have suggested, which is regardless, and again, we'll talk about this momentarily, of who was under center this coming year, you're setting yourself up for 2026, 2027, and maybe if some of these guys are still good to go, hopefully you either find their replacement cheap in the draft before then, or you're able to move money around. 2028, when Jefferson's contract ends, is his 28 or 29? I think it's 29.
It's probably 20. Yeah.
Yeah. O'Connell's contract's rumored to be around then, right? I think Darisaw's lines up in that area. So like everything they're doing is basically saying at some point over these next 3, 4, 5 years, you're gonna see the Minnesota Vikings consistently like start to consistently make runs. Now, the big thing about starting that this year has been the conversation that's dominated the entire internet. The Vikings QB2 conversation quickly swung to a QB1 conversation with multiple reports for and against potential interest in Aaron Rodgers. Um, I'm sure everyone watching this has seen and heard. To kind of sum up how it's coming across online, if you're involved with the Athletic, if you're Diana Rossini, Mike Silver, even local athletic reporter Alec Lewis, you are definitively saying that the Vikings have interest in Aaron Rodgers and have been discussing it for a few days. If you're almost anyone else, adding to that list, Benjamin Albright, who about an hour and a half ago said there is zero interest on behalf of the Vikings in this. It seems everyone's divided, to say the least, on what is actually happening.
Yeah. And before we get into the quarterback conversation, it just felt wrong to not mention that Harrison Smith.
Oh my God, how
Yeah.
could we forget? We're
Um,
terrible people.
I was finding somewhere to put it in, and I had better opportunities earlier, but I just didn't. Skolcial Network Harrison Smith thank you episode is delayed by a year because I know we said we were going to do that this year. But Harrison, I love you. You're my goat.
What's funny though is that all the people posting about him are saying one last ride, and I'm like, he never said one last ride, from my understanding.
No, but
And
like,
and we've been saying that for years.
yeah,
I mean, every time he does this on like a 1 year restructure, like we're like one last ride, one last run, and then he just does it again. Our boss Dustin did tweet, he should just keep doing this until he's simply not any good anymore. So
yeah, which might be soon, but
I don't know, man. Something tells me, and I felt it in this moment when Goff threw that bozo ball at him when the game was still close in Detroit. And he
hmm
laid out like, and granted, terrible throw. It was not Harrison was in coverage draining a guy or snuck out of nowhere and made a pick. It was an arm punt to say the least. But when he made that diving interception, I was like, it's gonna be real hard for him to be like, I physically just did that and I'm gonna hang it up. So I
yeah,
had a gut feeling. Am I saying that meaningless interception convinced him to come back? Maybe. No.
yeah.
I'm
No,
sure,
actually,
sure
yes,
it
it
felt
did.
good. I'm
It
sure it
did.
felt good enough, close enough to the time the season ended where it made him think, you know what? Maybe I got a few more of those in me.
First to report, Jason Harmon. That is why Harrison Smith is back, is
Yeah,
because
it's
that happened.
Jared Goff's arm punt. Yeah, entirely. But I'm
But
just saying, like he hadn't he I think his last interception was the Titans or Jags game.
Hmm.
It's one of those AFC
Sounds
South
right.
games. And so it had been a minute. So like to end the regular season doing that, like probably made him feel like, yeah, you know what? I could probably still get a couple more of these.
Every Harrison Smith interception last year, I was like, that might be the last one.
I know.
But now
Every
I'm going to give him even more attention than I said I was going to last season. And some Sam Darnold isn't going to be selfish and take the spotlight away.
every Harrison Smith interception, a child is conceived in that moment.
True. But we can talk about the other white men that probably don't like vaccines either now.
All right. White man. Yeah. First off, I'm gonna go on a quick rant here.
Go ahead.
Where do you think the conversation of Aaron Rodgers has turned on Minnesota sports Twitter?
That wasn't a rant. That was a question.
No, I was asking you a
Oh, I
question.
was just expecting like you to go crazy,
No,
but I
no.
didn't expect the question. Sorry. Can you ask it again?
What direction do you think Minnesota sports Twitter has taken the Aaron Rodgers conversation, both pro and against, so to speak?
I'm
What are they
I'm gonna
basing it off of?
I'm gonna make one wild guess at that one specific person. Our guy Skullbros is definitely for Aaron Rodgers coming here.
Yep, and he
Yeah,
is.
okay.
He has been repeatedly. I wasn't where I was going, but he has consistently said he does not think it's happening.
Hmm.
He does have connections. I was texting with him earlier this week. I 100% trust him. Crack Rock also says it's not happening. Um, has not led
Suspect.
us astray yet. But shockingly, everyone's basing this, and some people are just assuming it's this, and some people are making it about this around politics, which I find really funny because, like, personality and politics wise, it's pretty clear there's not much of a difference between JJ McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers. So, I have a guys in my replies because I'm pro JJ saying I'm this or I'm that or assuming it's political. No, I just personally don't want a 41-year-old quarterback. 4 or 5 years ago, 3 years ago, pre Achilles, if we had this opportunity, I'd be like, do it 100%, right? If and I don't mean with Kirk, that wouldn't have worked with Kirk, so to speak, but like having a second-year quarterback who is about to start, I would have that conversation. It's more about the age, the fact that he didn't quite look the same after the Achilles injury. He looked a hell of a lot better than Kirk did when Kirk started to kind of fall off, and you could tell Kirk's plant foot wasn't there. He just looked different in the pocket. Um, but for me, he's not at this stage, in my opinion. And if he signs and proves me wrong, I will give him his flowers. He's just not worth derailing your plans for. He's not a Allen, Mahomes, Jackson type. Bring in this person right now and win. In my opinion, if he comes in again, I hope I'm wrong.
So where I fall on it is that Aaron Rodgers, no, he didn't look the same after the Achilles injury, but then he kind of
Dev
started
did.
to look a little like Aaron again toward the end of last season. So that's where I'm
Ugh.
like, And JJ McCarthy, okay, let's just be honest with ourselves. JJ McCarthy's Aaron Jr. Like I'm just gonna say it. He seems like Aaron Jr. It's
And,
fine. It's
and his
cool.
play style, I know
Yeah.
collegiately very different, but
Yep.
like because of the playbook, but like not that different. He released an Instagram video today. It's an ad for like a natural like healing pad thing, and it's him recording his feet walking through the woods. Did you see the commercial?
Nope.
I'm gonna text it to you, and he's
Okay.
meditating, and then the Eagles Super Bowl celebrations on in the background, and it goes presenting the Lombardi Trophy, and his eyes open and look directly into the camera. It's sick. It's basically him saying, "I'm back and I'm ready,"
Hmm.
and also doing an ad.
Hmm.
And anyways, ran over, but it was kind of sick.
Yeah.
Some people are calling it cringe. I'm like, well, one, it's an advertisement. He didn't film this himself, but two, it's also implying he's ready for a run.
Yeah. Oh no, our quarterback of the future wants to win a Super Bowl. It's so freaking
Super
cringy.
cringe, bro.
Where I officially fall on it is Aaron started looking like Aaron again a little bit toward the end of the season. He was top 10 in passing yards and passing touchdowns, which that's not everything. But that's
Correct.
something. He's not washed up. Like he's just not. He could be by 20 by September, but from where he ended last year, I mean, he was on the Jets. Sorry, He was on the New York Jets. The Jets would ruin Pat Mahomes. They'd ruin Josh Allen. I don't care. It's the Jets. But I'm a big proponent of the saying two things can be true at the same time.
Yeah.
I can think Aaron Rodgers is still good enough to maybe take a team deep. I can think that maybe he could take the Vikings deep. I could think that Aaron can and JJ can go meditate together in the Minnesotan woods somewhere up near like Grand Forks or something. That's a small town in Minnesota. I know. I don't know many of
Well
them.
played. Well played.
Thank you. But I can also think you just drafted JJ McCarthy after letting an older quarterback that was going to cost you over $45 million last season with the 10th overall pick. There's a plan in place that you don't stray from. It's been working to this point plenty well. Why would you go away from it?
Yeah.
JJ McCarthy JJ McCarthy has been the quarterback this whole time. Sam Darnold threw 35 touchdowns last year. Guess what? JJ McCarthy has been the quarterback the whole time. Oh, Aaron Rodgers is on the market and he could come to Minnesota and keep following Brett Favre around like a lost dog. JJ McCarthy was the quarterback the whole time for the Minnesota Vikings from 2025 and beyond. The media will try to lead. I'm gonna sound like Aaron right now. Don't listen to the media. Don't listen to him. They need headlines. They need storylines. I'm sure the Vikings talked about. I'm sure Kevin was in the office like, "Hey, Quace, how you doing, man? I think Aaron would be good for this team. Stick to the plan." Like I'm sure it could have happened, but
Incredible role play, by the way.
thank you.
Very,
I
very
try to sound like
convincing.
I think I can sound like Kevin O'Connell, but I really can't.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, JJ's a quarterback. That's just
Yeah.
how it is. And Aaron could sign like right after I hit upload on this, and I look like an idiot. But guess what? After Aaron, JJ McCarthy is still the
The
quarterback of the
quarterback.
future. So,
I do want to bring up one thing. I agree. For me, look, if I'm objectively going to say, if I'm looking at 2025, which option do I think gives us the higher chance of winning a Super Bowl this year? I'm going to say Aaron Rodgers because the all the people online who are trying to shoot down the idea of JJ starting, they're like, well, he's unproven. He's never taken a snap. Well, yeah, there's only one way to fix that, which is to, like, what are you going to say next year if Rodgers comes in, right? Well, we have to go sign. Like, we're just going to repeat the same veteran quarterback thing. However, I do think if you're looking at 2025 in a vacuum, and maybe people have rightly asked, like, everyone knew Rodgers was getting cut. Why weren't these conversations had earlier? Why is it taking now? And why is it going on so long? Maybe they didn't quite expect. I know I didn't for them to bolster the roster as much as they did. And it's kind of tempting to be like, you know what, man, this car is suddenly a little faster than we thought it was. Maybe giving it to a kid who just got his license isn't the best way to keep it safe in this moment. I could understand those conversations, but for me, it's about getting out of the mentality we were in, really going back to 2016. You lose that game in 2015 to the Seahawks, and the Vikings enter 2016, opening US Bank Stadium, all the expectations in the world. The narrative was Teddy Bridgewater's about to break out. You have a preseason game against the Chargers where he jukes the living hell out of someone, and it's on ESPN for a week. Not even a week. It made it a couple days before all of a sudden his leg implodes. And the
mhm.
team from that moment has been, and maybe not so much last year until things started to play out, in win now at all costs mode. Because what did they immediately do? They spent their first round pick to trade for an emergency solution at quarterback. 2 years later, they immediately gave Kirk a record bag because they needed an emergency solution at quarterback. And they just leaned on that for 6 years and said, eventually it's going to work. And then it didn't. And then last year, we were finally going to take that step back. And oh my God, the team was better than we expected with a quarterback no one expected to be good. Like, we can't repeat that this year. Like, it's just the team can't. For me, I'm all about trying to gain as big of a window to have as many shots at the prize as possible rather than just swinging for the fences for 1 year. And for me, like, that's it. It's not, do I think JJ McCarthy's am I going to say he's a Hall of Fame quarterback? Am I going to meme it? Am I going to Photoshop a Hall of Fame bust? Yeah, because it's funny. Am I going to post Star Wars edits of JJ McCarthy from TikTok? Yeah, because it's funny and sick. I don't know what he's going to be, but none of us do until he actually gets to play. And at this stage in Kevin and Kwesi's tenure, you have to find that answer sooner than later. And you might not even have it this year, but you got to start the process.
Yeah.
It's for me, it's that simple. And if Rodgers signs, I'll make it clear because some people said they will not root for the Vikings if Rodgers comes. Um, I will root for them 100%, but I'll be way more mad if they don't reach a Super Bowl than I would be understanding the long term goals of why you have McCarthy out there. Because I'd look and say, if you don't win a Super Bowl, like you have conversations about the competency of the staff and front office if Rodgers comes in and just falters. Because that is such a swing and a miss and such a change to that locker room and such a change to the plan that if it doesn't work out, we got to have some conversations.
Yeah, it's not even a change to the plan. It's crumpling up the plan, spitting on it, and throwing it out the window.
And then saying, I'll find, oh, that should be there next year. I'll go find it and hope it's still in good shape.
Yeah, after all the weather has gotten to it. I love the a quarterback has never played a snap, so you don't know what he is argument. Like, can you imagine a scout? So, like, Kwesi and Kevin are about to send the JJ McCarthy pick. Can you imagine if an NFL's like one of their scouts was on like the other side of the room and we're like, hey, wait, he hasn't played an NFL snap yet. That's what that argument is.
That's what
So,
happened with that one pick, I guess, apparently, where we just didn't submit our pick in time was they were trying to go through the list. Who did that end up being? Was that Kenichi Odesi? Or was it, oh, who was it? Where they just went through the list, apparently, and just were like, oh, this guy's never played. This guy's never played. Crap, we're
yeah,
screwed.
it could have happened.
We
But
got
like as a
1 minute, by the way, in the Zoom before it
that's
boots
fine.
us.
As a fan, I I think it's obvious enough that Kwesi and Kevin have enough confidence in JJ McCarthy going forward to where as a fan, why wouldn't I have that confidence?
Yeah.
And then they can be wrong. I'm not saying NFL teams are always right. They gave TJ, never mind. But I'm just saying going forward, my trust lies within JJ McCarthy.
And whether that's now or in 2026, I can say I'll support whoever's under center. I have my preference. I hope Albright is correct. We will try to get this uploaded as quickly as we can. This is a Saturday night, so that hopefully we're not already proven wrong or this is a mute talking point. But
I
thank you
kind of hope
guys.
Albright isn't right because he blocked me on Twitter 5 years ago because I made fun of him for having an Android after he said he buys his phones at the doesn't buy his phones at the kid store or something, whatever that meant. Go ahead.
This
Sorry.
has been the Skolcial Network. We'll see you guys soon as we talk about the draft coming up.